Hi, how's it going? This is resident of Collinwood, Jewel T. Sains, and I decided to do a video not just about being a fan fiction writer, but about, the Halloween series as a fan fiction writer. How to tie together the timeline. Okay, so this is going to focus primarily on the sister connection that was made in Halloween 2, going off of that film and going off of the films that came after it. What you gotta understand is, as a writer, everything is a perception. Okay? So your perception of something might not be the same as mine. And that's okay. If you take away a different perception than me and write and get a story out of that, that's fine. Just like, I'll give you an example. Halloween 4 is a great example. When you're first introduced to Jamie Lloyd, she's on a couch looking out a window. Well, when she's looking out the window, she sees the ambulance that Michael Myers was just in. Now, clearly, that ambulance isn't there. So you're left to wonder what's going on. Then all of a sudden, here comes Rachel Carruthers, right? And then, after they have a brief conversation, Rachel leaves, and then no sooner does Rachel leave, you have Michael Myers appearing in the room. And then you hear this, she opens the door and Myers is there, air quotes. He's not really there. They come in the room, open the closet, and there's Jamie Lloyd. Well, what I gotta believe is that entire sequence starting on the couch, it's not that it didn't happen in a sense, it was a dream. Because I gotta believe, from my interpretation, that she never left that day. She went into that closet at some point in the night. By the time it shows her, that we're seeing her dream sequence. Okay? Now you could say, well, she could have hallucinated it. And that's fine too. Either way, it's a way to look at it. Okay? Now, how do you tie together the timelines? There's many steps. Okay, step one, you have to include 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Because let me explain something. As much as I love Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, it's not about loving it or not loving it. It's about the fact of Season of the Witch was an alternate reality. So therefore, when you're tying the sister connection, is what you really need to ask yourself is, what am I tying together? Because if you go, well, I wanted, if it's so look, I did this when I was writing my first Halloween 9 story. I was so excited. And I'll admit, the thought crossed my mind to tie in Season of the Witch. And now, how was I going to do that? Now, let me explain. I was going to explain that the Silver Shamrock Company did make masks, but their masks didn't always just get on people and, rattlesnakes and stuff. That wasn't their first time doing that. Clearly, the Silver Shamrock Company, to me, was around longer than what we believed. Again, it's my perception. You don't have to agree with that. So, to me, their mask actually used to produce killers, and you could have said that. Now, again, I scrapped that. I did not include that because because hindsight being 2020, context, being what it is, Season of the Witch, though it's in the timelines, it's happening in an alternate reality. Michael Myers is a fictional character in Season of the Witch. So the biggest hurdle to get past, really, would be, okay, how do you watch Halloween 3 Season of the Witch and now make, when they're saying, look, Michael Myers is a fictional character, you then don't jump over said hurdle, in my view, and say, well, no, Myers isn't a fictional character in that reality. When they showed you, yes, he is. You can't undo some of what's been done, because once you start doing that, you're opening up a whole can of worms for yourself as a writer. And again, I'm just giving some advice, on how to tie together the timelines. Now, I'm going to talk about, you have to do that when you write Halloween. No, but I'll get into that. This is going to be a long video. Um, once you get past Halloween 4, you got to look at 5 and 6 carefully. Now, Halloween 5, they say Jamie Lloyd is 9 years old. So less than a year later, this girl's age has jumped. Now, you can't just throw that away. You can't just say, well, now she's not 9 years old. So you got to include that. Now you get to Halloween 6, and here's where it gets interesting. Here's Terrence Wynn. We know he's evil. Now, when you write your story, what you need to do is, was Wynn always evil, or did he turn evil? And you could do that either way. Now, when I did my Halloween 9, I wrote originally, and I kept this, my Halloween 9, Terrence Wynn was not always evil. Because, bro, if he's always evil, it just, to me, from my standpoint, it'd have been too much. There had to be a turning point where this guy became corrupt for himself. Okay? He went in the business for himself, right? So, and I'm not saying you can't have him always as evil. You certainly can. Again, when you're writing, make it your preference to what story you're wanting to tell here. Make it your story. Make it where it's, okay, yeah, I'm going to have, say, Terrence was always evil from the word go. He always had the intent to try to worship Michael Myers, or whatever you want to say. Now, you get into, did Dr. Wynn control Michael Myers? Whether you watch the theatrical cut or the producer's cut, now I've watched the theatrical cut. The producer's cut is, did Terrence really control Michael? For my money, no. And this is where I go off the theatrical. They never actually say Terrence Wynn is controlling Michael Myers. I would say they did take Myers, but he got away from them and started killing them. Now, did they worship him? Again, when you're writing, it's your interpretation. Were they actually worshiping Michael Myers? The theatrical cut, it's really open to interpretation. You could either say yes, they were, or no, they were. If you're worshiping one killer, my takeaway from the theatrical cut is, then what the hell are you making another one for? Because if I'm worshiping one killer, it's sort of like, man always says worship one, the Bible says worship one God, okay? Well, if you're worshiping one killer, you're not going to turn around and produce the other. To me, my takeaway from 6 was, they weren't so much worshiping Michael as they were maybe they were at the beginning, but they began to fear his ass, because when a killer gets away from you and begins killing your own people, that's a problem. So 6 sort of answers, no, they really never had any real control over him, because if they did, he's not going to slaughter their ass. You're not going to, let's let the killer kill all of us because we love him. Yeah. No, that's just my interpretation of it. Again, you could have your own, and that's fine. So, what I did was Terrence Wynn became evil, and how this happened was at some point in time, Laurie Strode became pregnant after the events of 1978. I had her get pregnant about 19, let's see, I think it was 1981. I had her get pregnant, which that's when, I think that's when the sequel, Halloween 2, I think it was either 1981 or 1982. But, so she gets pregnant. In the meantime, Dr. Loomis is beginning to finally recover from his, burn wounds, but he's not yet out the hospital. She's pregnant. She doesn't know who to turn to. And because Dr. Loomis isn't fully recovered, Terrence Wynn has taken over as a part-time consul to his case because Terrence Wynn and him were friends. So they gave it to him for a time being. And he begins talking to Laurie Strode, and she tells him, I'm pregnant. And he just looks at her like with concern because, bro, Terrence knows what Loomis knew. He read, clearly he got told what Loomis got told at some point. So probably by the same nurse, Nurse Winnington, of, she knows, he knows she's related to Michael Myers. He knows this woman's probably scared out of her mind. And you could have Laurie hallucinating seeing Michael, and she could say that to Terrence Wynn. She could say, I see him everywhere I go. And he could tell her, you realize he's in a hospital, right? I know, but I see him everywhere. And you could have that. And she goes, I just want to get away from him. Well, bro, when it gets to the point of her giving birth, Terrence Wynn makes a decision. Terrence Wynn helps her deliver the kids in a hospital. And he makes this decision. Do I really want to leave both these kids on this woman who is really distraught? So at first, his decision isn't necessarily a bad one. It's you know what? This woman's going to keep running. Why should this woman be running with both these kids? One's enough. So he chooses the girl, Jamie. They're Jamie and John are twins. That's what I did. And Dr. Wynn told her Jamie died during childbirth. Now you could either use Dr. Wynn or you could just use a regular doctor that makes that call. Maybe the baby was dead at first and they revived, or whatever you want to say, or they just made that decision. Terrence Wynn is the best option, I would say, because it gives you a reason to use him, and it gives you a reason to make the eventual heel turn that he's already made in 6. Look, the heel turn's already been made in 6, so making the heel turn later isn't going to be a hard transition. So at some point in time, Terrence Wynn became obsessed with the occult due to the fact of how evil Michael Myers was. He did become obsessed with Myers. Loomis did too, but see, obsession differs with people. So while Loomis's obsession is not necessarily evil, he doesn't want Myers to hurt anybody, and he'll do anything to stop him. Well, now you have Terrence Wynn, who's obsessed with Michael Myers, and he'll do anything to replicate that kind of evil that Myers has. So there's that. And there's where your tie-in for the sister connection is. You have John and Jamie were twins. You have Terrence Wynn, who says, no, Jamie died during childbirth. This is why Laurie Strode never knew about Jamie. That's where you protect Jamie Lee Curtis's character. It's how you can protect her. Because, bro, listen, we all know, ladies and gentlemen, We all know Laurie Strode is not going to knowingly leave a kid behind. I think we've all taken away that from that with the Halloween series. We don't have to say, well, Laurie knowingly knew. No, you don't have to say that at all. You can say she just did not know. Think about the 80s. Now, listen, me and my wife have 2 kids. Childbirth is still a risk today. Now, it's not as big as a risk as it once was, because in the 80s, it was far more dangerous to have a kid then than it is now, because there wasn't all this technology, there wasn't all this advanced stuff. But the woman could still, now, just like today, just the similarity is a woman could, depending on the fetus and shit, a woman could still lose a kid either before birth or after birth. That could happen. So it's not out of the ordinary, especially in the 80s, for a woman to lose a child. It's not a stretch. It's not a stretch of the imagination. So you could definitely write that in as a viable story. You could also say Laurie just never knew. She never followed the events of Haddonfield. Why would she? To her, it had been 20 years since she seen Michael Myers. She didn't want to hear about Michael Myers. Maybe, again, that's something you could do. So there's that. Then you go off, obviously, you'd have to go off a resurrection where Laurie Strode is dead. Now, could you write Laurie as alive? Yeah, you could, but then again, you're opening up another can of worms. So that, again, that's your choice of, you could say she just fell, that when she was stabbed, it just paralyzed her, it didn't kill her. You could say that. So there's that. But, or you could just have her, well, she's dead. That's your option. And then once you start your story, though, here's 2 things you have to decide. Are you going to use the Loomis Wynn thing, where it's, yes, Dr. Loomis is somehow revealing that information, either it's through a kid or grandkid, or is it the internet that's revealing that information? You could do it that way. Now, for those who don't want to write the sister connection, and I have wrote one without it, it's very simple. You just have Michael Myers stalk random people, and you just have Michael Myers kill random people. Now, here's the thing, though, too. With the sister connection that I did, not only in Halloween 9, but hell on Halloween Night in Collinsport, you could still have him stalk and kill random people. That's the thing. I think a lot of writers think, well, you just have to have him stalk his family. No, you don't. Yeah, that could happen, but he could start stalking random people and inadvertently happen into one of his family members. That's a possibility as well. So when you're writing a Halloween story, what I'll say is, whether you use this sister connection or you don't, leave yourself open to possibility of, look, because if you did random, just random, when Myers kills, let's say, one random person or even 2, and he happens to catch a group of teens walking by after he's killed, let's say, one person, and they don't see it because it's hidden, but he can see them, well, he could start following those random people and kill them. And it could happen as easily as that. So I hope I've been insightful today for you on how to either do the sister connection or not do the sister connection for a Halloween story. I thank you for your time. Like, share, comment, and subscribe.